Welcome to the Papyrus Global Television World News Update. I am Christiana Babayo and here are the headlines. US-Iran ceasefire under strain as Strait of Hormuz tensions escalate. Islamabad talks may decide fate of fragile US-Iran ceasefire. IMF warns of long-term global economic damage amid downgraded growth forecasts. Nato intensifies pressure for freedom of navigation in Strait of Hormuz. Russian naval activity raises NATO alarm over North Atlantic cable security. Spain advances immigration regularization plan for undocumented migrants. Hungary election espionage scandal triggers political crisis over alleged foreign links. Greece faces €300 million EU agricultural subsidy fraud investigation. Slovenia pre-election corruption leak crisis deepens in Ljubljana. Bulgaria gripped by nationwide protest over systemic corruption. UN warns of worsening global human rights collapse across multiple conflict zones. And now the news in full. A fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran is facing severe strain as tensions escalate over the strategic Strait of Hormuz, a critical maritime corridor through which a significant share of global oil shipments pass daily. The truce, announced between April 7 and April 8, 2026, following weeks of intense hostilities, has quickly been undermined by conflicting interpretations of its terms and renewed military posturing on both sides. At the center of the dispute is maritime access through the Strait of Hormuz. The United States, under President Donald Trump, insists that the ceasefire guarantees unrestricted commercial navigation, warning that any delays or restrictions could be treated as a breach of agreement. Iran, however, maintains that while it has not closed the waterway, it retains sovereign authority to regulate maritime traffic, citing security concerns. Iranian naval patrols have intensified inspections and caused significant shipping delays, resulting in growing backlogs and disruptions across global supply chains. The United States has maintained a strong military presence in the region, with naval assets deployed across the Gulf in what officials describe as a precautionary posture. Iranian authorities, meanwhile, accuse Washington of aggressive surveillance operations and continued pressure on regional partners. Both sides have exchanged accusations of violating the spirit of the ceasefire, raising fears of miscalculation in a highly volatile environment. Diplomatic efforts are now shifting towards Islamabad, Pakistan, where high-level talks scheduled between April 10 and 12, 2026 are expected to determine whether the ceasefire can be sustained or collapse entirely. The United States delegation is expected to be led by Vice President J.D. Vance, while Iran's delegation will be headed by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, with both sides arriving under heavy political pressure and deep mistrust. The talks, facilitated through back-channel diplomacy involving regional intermediaries in Oman and Qatar, are focused on three key issues: maritime access through the Strait of Hormuz, sanctions and economic relief, and regional military activity. However, analysts warn that diverging interpretations of the ceasefire agreement may limit progress, with both sides maintaining rigid positions on sovereignty and security. Pakistan has placed Islamabad on heightened security alert as it hosts what officials describe as high-risk diplomacy, with the outcome expected to have significant implications for regional stability and global energy markets. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) has warned of mounting long-term economic damage as global growth forecasts are downgraded amid escalating geopolitical tensions and persistent uncertainty in energy markets. In its latest outlook issued in Washington, the IMF said repeated disruptions linked to Middle East instability are weakening global recovery momentum and increasing structural risk to the world economy. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said the global system is entering a prolonged period of instability driven by rising energy costs, fragmented trade flows, and heightened military risk premiums. The fund warned that even temporary disruptions in key maritime corridors such as the Strait of Hormuz are having outsized impacts on inflation, investment flows, and financial stability. Developing economies, including several in Africa, are expected to face heightened pressure due to rising import costs and currency instability, while advanced economies also experiencing weaker than expected growth driven by energy price shocks. NATO allies have intensified calls for guaranteed freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, warning that continued disruptions could threaten global energy security. Officials in Brussels said allied consultations are underway to coordinate a unified response as Iranian naval activity continues to slow commercial shipping through inspections and delays. Western governments, including the United States, United Kingdom, France, and Germany, have raised concerns about inflationary risk and supply chain disruptions, while Iran has rejected what it calls external interference in its maritime affairs. The dispute is further complicating already fragile diplomatic efforts tied to the US-Iran ceasefire negotiations in Islamabad. In parallel, NATO has expressed concern over alleged Russian naval activity in the North Atlantic, with intelligence reports indicating unusual movements near undersea cables routes that carry global internet and financial data. While no confirmed sabotage has been reported, Western security agencies describe the activity as consistent with hybrid warfare tactics targeting critical infrastructure. Russia has denied the allegations, calling them politically motivated, but NATO has increased surveillance across key maritime checkpoints, including the Greenland-Iceland-United Kingdom corridor. Spain is moving ahead with a major immigration regularization plan aimed at granting legal status to between 400,000 and 600,000 undocumented migrants. The initiative, led by Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, targets long-term residents working in key sectors such as agriculture, construction, and caregiving, as Spain seeks to address labor shortages and demographic decline. While supporters describe the policy as a necessary economic reform, opposition parties warn it could encourage irregular migration and strain public services. The proposal is now expected to move into legislative debate in Madrid. Hungary has been plunged into a political crisis following allegations of election-related espionage and suspected foreign intelligence interference ahead of national elections. Investigations are underway into claims that sensitive political data may have been accessed through covert networks linked to government cycles, though no formal evidence has been publicly confirmed. Prime Minister Viktor Orban has dismissed the allegations as politically motivated, while opposition leaders are demanding emergency parliamentary inquiries. The European Union is closely monitoring the situation amid concerns over electoral integrity and hybrid threats. In Greece, authorities are investigating a €300 million EU agricultural subsidy fraud scheme involving falsified land claims and ghost farms. The European Public Prosecutor's Office is leading the probe, with searches and asset freezes already underway in multiple regions. Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has pledged full cooperation with investigators, while opposition parties have called for parliamentary scrutiny over alleged systemic failures in subsidy oversight. We will now take a short break and the news will continue when we come back.
Paglogma 2026. The Papyrus Global launches new series starting Tuesday, 3rd March 2026. The conversation starts now across Africa. Our languages may differ, our borders may separate us, but our struggles bear semblance. Communities seeking opportunities, youth demanding inclusion, citizens calling for transparency. These are realities that unite us. Africa is united by a common challenge and a common responsibility, building resilient, inclusive, and sustainable communities. To set this conversation in motion, the Papyrus Global is launching the pre-conference live series, Governance That Touches Lives. Let's start where it matters the most.
Welcome back, and now the news will continue. Slovenia is facing a major pre-election corruption leak crisis after alleged recordings surfaced involving political operatives linked to public procurement contracts. Prime Minister Robert Golob has denied wrongdoing, calling the leaks politically motivated, while opposition leader Janez Janša has demanded urgent parliamentary hearings. Investigations are ongoing by Slovenia's anti-corruption authorities and national investigators in Ljubljana. Bulgaria is witnessing widespread protests across Sofia, Plovdiv, Varna, and Burgas over allegation of systemic corruption, vote buying networks, and judicial interference. Demonstrators are demanding sweeping reforms, including stronger judicial independence and electoral transparency. Authorities have launched investigations while the European Commission has urged restraint and dialogue to prevent further escalation. The United Nations has issued a stark warning over a global deterioration in human rights conditions, citing simultaneous crises in Sudan, Ukraine, Myanmar, Gaza, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. UN officials describe an unprecedented strain on international humanitarian systems and growing violations of international law. UN High Commissioner Volker Turk warned that continued geopolitical fragmentation and funding shortfalls are weakening global crisis response capacity, raising fears of prolonged humanitarian collapse across multiple regions. And that's all we have on the news, but before we go, here's a recap of our main stories. US-Iran ceasefire under strain as Strait of Hormuz tensions escalate. Islamabad talks may decide fate of fragile US-Iran ceasefire. IMF warns of long-term global economic damage amid downgraded growth forecasts. Nato intensifies pressure for freedom of navigation in Strait of Hormuz. For continuing coverage, in-depth analysis, and expert reports on these and other developments worldwide, stay connected with the Papyrus Global Television. Visit papyrusdaily.com for breaking news as it happens. I am your host, Christiana Babayo. Thank you for joining us. On behalf of the entire newsroom and production team, have a safe and informative evening.